Why Canadians are staying away from American restaurants, how when you put a tax on something from Canada, it's really the American people who have to pay more money. Well, forget about that for now. We're talking about Canadian stuff. Canadian people are saying no way to American companies completely. You thought it was just one bad time at a restaurant. Cold French fries, mean workers, a huge bill. But now you can see you weren't the only one who was mad. Canadians aren't forgiving anymore. They're not going back. And now the restaurant chains are finally feeling it hurt their business is smart. People who study money stuff say that big American food chains lost more than $150 million from Canadian tourists in just 1 year. This isn't just a lucky accident. It's what's really happening today. We're going to tell you about the top 15 American restaurant chains that Canadians are staying away from. A number that has a huge scandal that even people who really loved the place couldn't defend that number 15. IHOP, the pancake place nobody wants to get off the highway. Your stomach is making hungry noises, and you want something, but in more and more American towns, something's missing. Canadian license plates in the parking lot of IHOP. The bright blue signs used to mean comfort food and fluffy pancakes. Now, for many Canadians, it means a place to skip what changed. For years, IHOP told people it was a friendly, cheap breakfast place for people traveling between countries. But as people started wanting better food, healthier stuff, and fresher meals, IHOP stayed exactly the same as Canadian travelers have been saying what they really think. The syrup is fake corn syrup. The fruit comes from a can. And the all-day breakfast often has old eggs and limp bacon. And the big portions, bigger doesn't mean better when you walk out feeling sick in 2024 alone. Canadian travel blogs and food reviewers wrote more than 50 mean reviews about IHOP in Washington, Michigan, and New York State. One couple from Montreal. They became famous after making a TikTok comparing a $17 Canadian brunch to a $26 IHOP meal. The IHOP one looked like gross cafeteria food. But it's not just how it looks. IHOP uses too many fake ingredients, and Canadians want food that comes from local places and has clean ingredients. Instead of sugary pancake stacks, Canadians are now going to small brunch places and fancy diners with good menus and fresh food, especially in border towns like Buffalo, Spokane, and Detroit. IHOP's name might still have the word international in it, but many Canadians think it doesn't deserve that name anymore. But one fast food empire didn't just lose customers. It lost the trust of a whole generation. Number 14, Chick-fil-A, from curious to controversial at first. It was something new and different. Canadians would drive into the U.S., see a Chick-fil-A, and wonder what everyone was talking about some. Even waited in really long lines just to try the famous chicken sandwich. But that moment of being curious has turned into something totally different. What used to feel like a special Southern secret now feels to many Canadians like doing something wrong. The food might be crispy, but the reputation, that's a growing problem. Chick-fil-A has been connected for a long time to politics and giving money to groups that are against LGBTQ people, and that made big news. And while some American customers forgot about it, Canadian travelers have not. In a country where being nice to everyone isn't just a brand thing, it's just how things should be. Chick-fil-A's probable. This left a mark that won't go away, actually. Canadian tourist surveys from this past year showed a huge 38% drop in people wanting to visit the chain during U.S. trips, as stories from travel websites and food social media show a clear picture. Chick-fil-A has become the brand people skip, even if they're hungry. Add to that the problem with pricing. Combo meals are now more than $15 in many places, and even the sandwich itself doesn't seem worth it anymore. Meanwhile, Canadian-friendly competitors like A&W or Mary Brown's have become much more popular, offering good sourcing, packaging that breaks down naturally, and fewer bad news stories. Chick-fil-A tried to open stores in Canada and failed. Now they're struggling to even keep Canadians who visit the U.S. And just when you thought fast food was safe, one brand's fries are making Canadians walk out the door. Number 13, Five Guys. Too greasy. Too expensive as brown paper bag might be. Famous, but the grease soaking through it? Not so much. For Canadians crossing the border, Five Guys used to be a nice treat. Really big burgers, tons of fries, and an old-school simple feeling. But in 2025, something changed. The price got crazy high, the experience felt old and boring, and suddenly, Canadians stopped wanting it. A typical order for one person now costs more than $25, and that doesn't even include a milkshake. For travelers used to clear pricing and fresh food choices, that kind of bill feels like stealing money in broad daylight. The turning point came when several Canadian influencers filmed their cross-border food trips and included Five Guys receipts. In their Overpriced Fails series, one video comparing a $19 Five Guys burger to a locally made $13 alternative back in Toronto got over 1 million views. Comments came pouring in. Never again. Not worth the calories. Hard pass, and it's not just what people think. Food quality is getting worse. Customers notice smaller meat patties, saltier fries, and service that's not as good. That in contrast, Canada's own fancy burger places like Burgers Priest or Hero Certified are doing great, offering cleaner ingredients, lower prices, and just as much flavor without the regret after eating. Five Guys used to rely on charm and being simple. Now it's weighed down by its own too muchness. But the real shock comes from a chain that Canadians used to wait in line for. Have you had a road trip? Moment where you just walked out of a U.S. restaurant. You're not alone, and it's happening more often than you'd think. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. If one of these chains has disappointed you recently, we're only halfway through. And the next 7 names, they're even worse. Number 12. Olive Garden, bottomless regret. Not breadsticks. It used to be a running joke. When you're here, you're family. But for more and more Canadians, Olive Garden now feels like the relative everyone tries to avoid. The nostalgia of fake Italian charm and bottomless salad has worn off. In its place, a huge menu, reheated sauces, and pasta so overcooked it could be baby food that Canadian travelers once gave Olive Garden a chance. Now they're warning each other to stay away. What happened? The franchise failed to change with the times. While Canada's restaurant scene embraced real regional food and farm-to-table experiences, Olive Garden stayed stuck in an old formula: pasta drowned in butter, frozen chicken, and enough salt to dry up a lake. According to numbers from 2024, Olive Garden's U.S. visits from Canadian travelers dropped by 26%. Websites like TripAdvisor and Reddit are filled with reviews calling the chain out of touch and barely better than a microwave dinner. Even influencers who used to get paid to promote it are quietly saying no to working with them. Meanwhile, Canadian Italian restaurants in cities like Ottawa and Vancouver are becoming super popular, offering handmade pasta, fresh basil, and real olive oil from Italy. People returning from cross-border trips now call Olive Garden tourist bait, a leftover from a time when food could get away with being bland and boring. For Canadians looking for real flavor and good value, the endless breadsticks just aren't enough anymore. But while Olive Garden may feel tired, one American diner chain is collapsing right now. Number 11, Applebee's. The neighborhood is empty now. You walk in hoping for comfort, but what you get feels like a ghost of what it used to be. Applebee's once proudly called itself your neighborhood bar and grill, but for many Canadian travelers, that neighborhood now looks abandoned. The menu hasn't changed in any meaningful way in years. The decorations look frozen in 2008, and the food, it's the definition of forgettable: reheated appetizers, watery cocktails, and main dishes that taste like they came from a microwave in a cheap motel. Canadians used to stop here after shopping, trips or road trips. Now they avoid it completely, and not just because of the food. What really tipped the scale was rising prices combined with disappearing service. Reports from cross-border cities like Plattsburgh, Niagara Falls, and Bellingham show Applebee's locations are often short on workers and disappointing to customers. As in early 2025, a viral TikTok showed a group of Toronto teens leaving in the middle of the meal after waiting 30 minutes for frozen boneless wings. The clip ended with one saying, "We could have had better at a gas station." That one line stuck, and so did the feeling. Canadian diners are switching from Applebee's to craft pubs, fusion restaurants, and any place that doesn't serve mashed potatoes. From a plastic bag, the once welcoming chain has become a warning story. When you stop changing with the times, the customers stop showing up. But if Applebee's is losing steam, one famous chain is straight up losing its identity. Number 10, Denny's. The American diner downsized. There was a time when seeing a glowing Denny's. Sign off the highway felt like a warm hug. 24-hour comfort food, greasy eggs, and bottomless coffee. For Canadian travelers, it was part of the road trip tradition, but that tradition is falling apart now. Denny's feels less like a diner and more like a dollar store brunch. Burnt toast, dry pancakes, mystery sausages. It's the kind of breakfast that makes you question your choices. The menu hasn't kept up with the times. The quality has nose.